Street Smart podcast coming at you from Eagle Mountain Lake in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with my good friend Eric Waller. And Eric's got quite the story. He's done a lot of things, and I couldn't wait to have him on just because he's just an interesting person all the way around. But more than that, I know his story is going to really be interesting for you guys to hear. So Eric, thanks for being a part of it.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
So Eric and I grew up in the same area. He's actually born and raised in Odessa. I was born and raised in Midland, which is better, obviously. And a little bit of an age gap, but not much. But I didn't ever meet you or know you until, gosh, it's probably 7 years now that we've known one another. But it was well into our adulthood and careers, and so it's kind of an interesting way our paths crossed. But let's start there. Let's start with Odessa and kind of tell me about your childhood and that.
Oh, wow. So, I grew up in Odessa. I was a fourth generation oil field person is what I ended up being for a lot of my career. But I grew up around men and women that worked in the oil and gas industry. Okay. So, I lived in Odessa. To me, it was just normal. I mean, my understanding growing up in the 70s and 80s there, it was dangerous, but it didn't really feel dangerous. I wanted to play, when I was a little kid, I wanted to play football for Mojo, and I wanted to work in the oil field. And my ultimate goal was someday to be one of those oil field guys that could fly to lunch in Dallas and come back.
Probably one of the most West Texas things I've ever heard anyone say.
That was all I wanted. I mean, and the problem was I wasn't athletic.
Yeah, well, but you can still work in the oil field.
But I could, I had enough bad habits that they'd hire me in the oil field back in the 80s. So, but grow up in Odessa was fine. Schools were fine. Looking back, I didn't realize the boom bust cycle, how many, of my friends left town. Later on in life, I think a lot of young people grow up now, they have Facebook and they have all these social media things, but they just don't realize that so many of us, when we left town, we just lost track.
You did.
That was it.
And what's unique is with Facebook and stuff, some of those people I lost track with just pop up.
And they're in Michigan and they're in Ohio.
Oh, no, you went through that? Oh, no. You see, you just kind of get to catch back up on their lives, which is pretty neat. But you're right. I grew up in the 80s primarily. I was born in the 70s, and the same deal, man. When you hit those bus cycles, your friend group changed somewhat sometimes. I guess I'll catch Kevin on the flip, or whatever. You just didn't know, and then. But yeah, so we're your fourth generation oil and gas. Mm-hmm. So what did your dad do?
Well, my dad's deceased, but my dad was just drilled all over the world, did workovers, drilling, consulting type stuff, just really all over the planet. Followed my granddad, who did the same on my dad's side. And on my mother's side, of course, my mother worked in the oil field. My aunt worked in the oil field, and my granddad was a gas compressor mechanic started off with Magnolia Petroleum Company in El Dorado, Kansas, and retired. They had become Mobile 32 years later.
Heard of them.
Yeah. And they transferred him from Kansas to Odessa. They brought my mother there, and that's kind of how it.
That's how the Waller family ended up, or your mother's family ended up there, and then, and subsequently you.
And as a matter of fact, from my mother and my dad's side, there's not a single one of them left there except for my brother, and he's holding strong. He's got his little block down there, and so. But the truth is, I was good at a lot of things. I was smart. I was intelligent, but I wasn't good at being a student.
Yeah,
I think any of my teachers watching this will say, I can't believe you're actually on this thing, but B,
right.
I just wasn't good at being a student, and I had above average intelligence, and so, everyone in my entire life was telling me, you got to go to school, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a scientist, you got to be this, and I wanted to have the Force and be a Jedi, which was not an option, I found out later.
It's still not left you though, and because when I come to, we're at your home here on the lake, and when I walked up, there's I'm going to get it wrong. I know there's stormtrooper helmet on a gargoyle or something out in the front there.
It's a foo dog.
Well, I walk up and I'm like, of course that's out here.
Yeah,
of course.
I had it on the motorcycle. I took it off, but
that's fair.
So I didn't do good at going to school. I just didn't. And so
I didn't either.
Yeah.
And I had the same thing. You're too smart to be doing making the grades you're making or this and that. And I've said this on other episodes of this, but my thought pattern wasn't, hey, I need the degree to get to where I want to get to. It's like, I'm going to get there. I'll just figure it out a different way.
I say this a lot now, and I don't mean it any kind of disrespect. Our nation needs great employees,
Yeah.
But, this is an entrepreneurial podcast, and the truth is the public school system's kind of designed to create good employees. They didn't teach us how to do a lot of the things. And I don't know if I knew as a young man I wasn't going to be a good employee. Or I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't handle the rigidity of the process of the rules. And a lot of people, my peers that were successful at that, went on and they had very early fast-track careers, and they continue with those today. But for me, the track, it just wasn't available. I couldn't have went to college if I'd have tried,
Right. And if you had gone, you'd gotten bored. I mean, I went and I didn't finish because not because I couldn't do the work. I truly would sit there and be like, how are you not understanding this? I would get really frustrated and in some ways it's kind of short-sighted, but I would be like, I'm just going to go do something else, and just didn't go. So you break out into the oil field when?
The winter of 1989.
So you picked the winter, which is an interesting choice.
No, I mean, so I got to be honest with you. I had not been going to school, okay? And so my family...
How old are you at this point?
I'm 17.
Okay.
So I started school early. I was a September baby. I went to private school so I could get in early because I could read early. So, they were pushing me through school. So I was failing my senior year, and so the family decided they were going to get me a job in the oil field. And my granddad, who had retired from Mobil, had went to work doing overhauls for Curly Cohey and Associates. And that's a low-speed integral gas compressor overhauls. A lot of people don't know what that is, but I can tell you it's a hard job.
Wait, so it's working on giant engines. They're small,
extremely high temperature rooms,
right.
high noise, high vibration.
High noise, and in the summertime, you're around the heat that's ambient, and then also the heat of that engine. It's brutal work. It is.
I got hearing loss from it today. I mean, it's high, but
yeah.
They were going to work it out of me. They were going to work it out.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think that was their plan? Let's put him in the oil field and make him appreciate the opportunities education could afford. Because I think my dad did that to me a bit.
Yeah.
And what my dad did not calculate on was sending a young man to Minden, Louisiana on a crew of men, getting to hang out on per diem, on overtime by Thursday, making more money than I ever knew I was going to make, and getting to hang out with a bunch of dudes. And I'm like, well, this is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard work, but I mean, shit, I'm a young man. I can do it, and whatever. This is great. I don't want to do it forever, but I can certainly do it for right now.
Well, this goes on a while, and kind of get through this period to where I can get another shot at school. Maybe a semester late, but I can get it done. And they said, well, have you learned anything? And I was like, I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was like, look, my friends that did graduate, or I think they were making $2.35 an hour minimum wage. It might have been $2.85, but it was two something.
They were making minimum wage anyway.
I said, my friends graduated making that. I'm making $6.50 an hour. We're working 7/12s. I mean, I was making 44 in overtime and per diem, and I had, like you said, I was like, heck no. But the truth is, I really wanted to work with grown men and do the things they were doing. It was dangerous. It was hot. It was scary. And it was way better than school. It was way better than diagramming sentences. Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't athletic. I couldn't run and jump faster than you, but I could pick up and move heavy things, and I could think about complex situations. Sure. And so I went from a person who the environment I was in, I was a complete abject failure, to getting a job as a young man and getting the old pats on the back. Hey, good job.
Right. From seasoned guys. Yeah, man, this guy's a worker.
Yeah, so grown men are giving me pats on the back. The family's upset about my behavior, but the truth is they're like, okay, and I just, not everybody's made to go to college. Now, I will say I did go to college later as an adult. I did get a Bachelor of Science degree. It was worth doing. I did further my skills, and it did help my career as a professional. Okay. But it wasn't then.
Right.
It was going to work.
Right. What ultimately made you decide as an adult that you needed, what did you need to shore up that made you decide I need to go to college to get that?
I'm going to be honest with you. It was kind of an accident. Mm-hmm. And then very quickly after the accident was a thought process that led. So a lot of this occurred in the same period. So I can't really tell you what came first, chicken or egg.
Sure.
But what really happened was, I was working for a company. I think they sold, so I'll say Compressor Systems, CSI.
CSI, yeah, they're Compresco,
Yeah.
CSI Compresco now.
Let me tell you something. The Warrens owned it. I bled CSI. I mean, I bought their gear. They never gave me a hat or a shirt. I paid for them. That's the kind of employees we were. And I had got transferred to Midland, and then I had been misled.
You were transferred to Midland from Odessa?
No, I was working Sonora. So
okay.
I ran all
so you were
that
further
south stuff
yeah.
way down to Del Rio, Fort Stockton. And
that's
and
tough country down there, man.
Yeah, and I was running 60, 80 hours a week. You know, I drove off a bridge in a F-450. I mean, I almost died. You know, these guys were working me pretty hard. But I got transferred to Midland. I was pretty excited about that. And I showed up within a month. I realized something's wrong. The guy I'm working for is not aware of any of the deals that were made. And I'm just like, wow, I can't believe they got me. And I left there really heartbroken, man. I mean, I hate to say it, but I was heartbroken, man. I mean, back in that day, I'll tell you, when I was in Sonora, and there's people may watch this will know, if you talk smack about CSI, you had trouble with me. Like,
yeah.
I rode for the brand. I mean, you don't come over in a Hanover truck and even bow up.
Yeah.
Don't. You know, we'll take the air out of your tire, whatever. I'm serious. The Weatherford guys don't. And they loved and respected me, and I did too. But, man, when I left there and the Warrens died and it got bad, I ended up at another company, and I just thought, well, you know, I just can't. I keep getting moved around, and the better I get at working on gas compressors, they won't promote me. They just give me more compressors.
Yeah. Well, and they might be looking at it like, you know, why would I promote my best hand out of the field?
And I wasn't the best, but my point was,
you know what I'm saying.
I couldn't get to a sales job or any of those jobs that looked a little more comfortable.
Right. Why would I take my hitter and make him a manager of the team?
Right.
That kind of a thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, at that point in my life, I got to tell the story accurately. I didn't deserve to be the manager of a team, but there was no way they were going to even track me anyway.
But even though you didn't deserve it, you needed to be able to see a pathway that there's something there, or at least see when things are, you know, talked about that they're, you know, beholden to them in some way. You're right. And so you leave CSI. Mm-hmm. How old are you then?
Man, by then I'm probably 28, 29.
Did you have to turn the El Camino in?
That's a little before my time with the El Caminos. But actually prior to that, I'd started my first company. So this
kidding.
I had left a company called Highland Gas, and they were a kind of a PE-backed roll-up. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what any of that was at the time. I thought I had a good, secure job. I didn't realize. And by the way, everyone out here working, if you're working for an oil and gas company, it's for sale. So
100% it's for sale, and yeah, you're right. And
I didn't know that.
Well, everything's for sale, Eric.
Well, but I mean, you know, it's really, really for sale. And I was like, wow. Correct. And so they sold it, and I was a young man, maybe 26 years old. They gave me a year's severance, and I mean, it was way too much money to give a kid like me, right? Still,
though, man, that's good that they gave you something out of the deal. They didn't have to.
Hey, they were great. We worked day and night. We built that plants up. We did a lot of crazy stuff, and I was the labor end of that wing at that point in my life, but I participated hard, and I got rewarded for it.
That's awesome.
And I started a compressor company with a partner, and it just didn't work out. And so I left. I had failed in that business, okay?
So you start this compressor company with a partner. Now, the idea would be that you were going to have rental units or sell units? No. So what I did was I went and bought an engine analyzer, these old PFMs. Gotcha.
I don't know if anybody knows what these are, but at the time, I'm a 26-year-old, 27-year-old kid. I buy a $50,000 engine analyzer, a truck. I tool it up, and I go.
I'm going to need you to scoot around because you're not on camera.
Hey.
And get the mic in front of you.
Okay.
Amateur. It's like Bush League over here.
I know it. Well, so I get all this stuff, and then we start a business, and the partner I choose is in another state, and and I'm young, and
this isn't when someone being in another state was an easy thing to navigate.
No, the internet didn't exist.
Yeah, you didn't have Zoom calls.
No. And so we were traveling and working, and it would get slow in between because I'd never been a salesman. You understand, I couldn't get promoted, so I'm the field guy. What happened is I'd get the work. I'd go do the work, and then we'd run out of work, and I'd have to go sell work.
Right,
so I'd take other jobs like roustaboutting or car sales.
So the sales guy was not able to sell because he had to do the work too.
Yeah. And my partner was trying to sell in other states, but he was unable to do the work, so he was having difficulty it's kind of like without the knowledge, it's difficult to sell. He had business savvy.
Yeah, well, and even if he got the work, you couldn't cover it.
Or I was driving to Mississippi to do a job, right? So that business failed. I lost my car.
What was the name of the business?
Western Compression Works.
Nice.
WCW.
Looks good, man.
And the logo, I wish I could find a card. It's the most horrible logo on the planet. And I designed it, right?
Right.
But but basically what happened was I left there. I had got my car repoed. I mean, voluntarily surrendered it. Ultimately, a year later, ended up filing financial bankruptcy personally.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about finance or borrowing. I had leveraged credit based on my family's relationships in the oil field. So I had to pay the supply houses, right? I mean, because that was family connections, right?
Sure. Yeah. Like we were talking about before the show. I mean, you've got generational connections, and then that will get you in the door.
You can't break those. Yeah.
But you mess that up.
Right.
And you'll never be allowed back in the door.
Right. Well, so I paid those debts, but I couldn't pay my car payment. I was having trouble paying my house. Anybody that's been financially struggled knows. And I'm 27 years old, 28.
Wow.
And I can drink Budweiser till the sun comes up, on Monday.
Yeah. Those days are long gone.
And they just handed me a bunch of money. But the company goes okay, right? I mean, I realized that I can get MSAs. I can figure out the insurance.
Right.
I mean, I was a legitimate company. We wrote a legitimate safety manual. I mean, but I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I lost it.
But from that, you understood, there's some skill set here that I have.
So what happens is when you lose your first business, I think that's a pivot moment for entrepreneurs.
Okay. So
I don't think you have to lose your first business. Let me be clear. You don't have to go broke, okay?
If you don't have to, don't. Yeah.
But I think people that lose their first one that don't bounce back or just don't. I mean, I think there's way more of them than you know, because it's tough to watch them haul your car out of the driveway, to go tuck your tail in and go ask for work from your competitor. Because when I started my business, the only skill set I had was natural gas compressors.
Right.
I went to battle the best I could.
Right.
And anybody that knows me knows I might lose the fight, but we're in the fight.
Yeah, you're going to have a facial scar.
So then I have to shut my company down and go ask for work, right? And
so
it was a real kick in the ego, man. I mean, bad.
Sure. And
so,
at this time, are you married? You have kids?
I am at the time, yeah.
Married, no kids?
Both, no kids.
Had kids, yeah. So not only, and there's that stress too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've always worked. I just felt I was just embarrassed.
Yeah.
I had been this blue-collar guy who had been a failure, who got this glimpse of hope, who started this business and had lost it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, shit.
When you started that business, you're just coming off of the sale of the other one that you worked for, and they'd given you a chunk of money. And when you started the business, did you think, oh man, this is obviously when you started, you think it's going to go ape shit. What reservations did you have, if any, and how did you get through those? And because that's kind of the theme of this for me. I mean, like we talked about, I watched my dad own businesses my whole life, and I'll have ideas to start businesses, and then I just kind of get hung up in the starting blocks because I'm like, I mean, I get paid really well now, and what do I really want to take that chance? And there's so many ways for it to go wrong, and then I'd end up just talking myself out of it. How did you keep from doing that?
Well, I mean, after the first one, I kind of left with, it's really, I don't really know when I internalized it, but I feel like I internalized the fact that I was a damn good mechanic and I knew nothing about business. And I was smart, but I think that's when the seed got planted was, if you ever want to do this, you have to learn some different things.
Right.
Now, I didn't decide I want to do this again. I went and got a job with CSI.
Right. My question wasn't in the learning process. It was more before you started WCW. How did you get through the being frozen at the starting blocks?
Well, to be honest with you, okay, I'm 26, 28, 27,
high risk tolerance.
Well, but not only that, I mean, the one skill I had was I and I'll say this unapologetically, I worked my ass off and people I worked with knew it. Yeah. And not everybody liked me. And, all that. But when I worked on a gang, for sure, my gang respected me. Sure. So I always had the ability at this point to say, if it doesn't work, but the truth is I don't like taking orders from people. I think it's the real problem, right? That's what's always kind of driven me to do it. But then I decided, well, hey, if you can't be in charge of yourself and your own job and your own business,
Yeah.
you better eat some humble pie and go work for somebody else. So
Right.
I did CSI for, that period. And then, it kind of went bad there at the end, but I had made a decision to go to work for Arco
Okay.
at the time. And I went to work for Arco, and I believe it or not, I didn't want to work for another gas company or oil company because Highlands had sold. Now, I tell the story about how I got the money. I didn't tell you how when the vice president's name was Eric Zamora, nice guy. I mean, fully respect him. He did what he said he'd do, but I had no idea we were for sale. I was a kid, and he walked in. He said, "Hey, guys, the rumors are true." And I leaned in.
Yeah. Well, what's going
And
on?
he said, "We've sold the company." And I held my hand up. I said, first I heard of that.
Yeah.
I literally said that. And all the guys.
No one ran this by me.
I said, "What?" And everybody looked at me like I was an idiot. And I was like, I was the idiot in the room. But
Yeah.
I was like, this is ridiculous. I stressed about this job. I used to get to travel. And I worked a lot harder hours. I had the camaraderie. And now I'm at this gas plant. We go to work the same day, the same locker. It's boring.
Right.
And, they're just wanting me to do it faster and cheaper. And,
Right.
it's exhausting. And then I kind of snapped out. And then Eric Zamora said, "Now here's what we're going to pay you." In the same meeting, I said, "Hey, I'm sorry about earlier. I'd tell you right now I did." And I said, "If you want to do this again somewhere else, please call me." Because
Sure.
I realized I'd got 2.5 years pay for working 2 years.
Yep,
I'd got
yep.
work 2, and they gave me, it's the way they added it all up. I said, "I'll go with you next week." And everybody laughed at me like I was an idiot in the room again. But I meant it. I said, "Well, this is way better than working by the hour. You mean I could go to work for you and your team, and you guys do this thing somehow, and you get big old chunk of money at the end?"
Right.
And that's when my eyes got opened to there's something
Well, it's
out
all,
there.
and what you're describing there is a term that you said to me, and I've used many times to describe myself, and that term was entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I'd ever heard that term, and you defined it as, hey, I'll kill myself to come up with efficiencies and ideas and all of those things internal to your company to make you successful. And there is an entrepreneurial spirit to that, but doing it internally with the sort of safety net, obviously, of a steady paycheck. But anyway, yeah, that stuff happens though. You realized Eric got a chunk of money and he could go do it again, and you'd like to be a part of that. So
Right.
yeah.
But I had kids, and I got my ass kicked, and I'd filed bankruptcy,
Sure,
and they hauled
sure.
the car off, and so, well, anyways, I ended up at Arco, which immediately, while I'm getting hired, sells to BP, and so at one point my insurance says Arco, and my check says BP, and my
Right.
paperwork says Amoco. It was that period of time. Well, they had
Also not atypical in oil and gas.
Right. Well, I had went to CSI, remember, and was trying to. Then I started saying, okay, I have to go to work for somebody. Remember, I'm telling you, if you can't
Right,
be in charge of your own job and create income, you better chill out and do it.
you better suck it up.
Suck it up. So I go suck it up, and at BP they've got tuition assistance. And so I'm sitting over in Midland. I've been misled about the transfer. I'm pissed. They offered me a job. I didn't want to go to work for another oil company, but I realized, I said, okay. And I went to work for them, and I ended up being at BP about 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And using that entrepreneurial stuff, wanting to get better, do things, I would try to run little programs within the company and improve things. And, you could look at my career from any perspective. I mean, the people that work with the hate of my guts can tell it one way, and the people that love me can tell it another.
Sure.
But the truth is, I went places people wouldn't go, and I did things people wouldn't do. And when my boss was interested in something, I got fascinated by it. And they promoted me a lot. It wasn't because I kissed their ass. The truth is, most of the managers in the BP rooms didn't like me. I don't fit the mold.
Right.
I literally got some training for a week for some really high-powered consultants who came back and consulted me. I have it in here, my Hogan personality and all my disc stuff.
Sure.
And they said, "You're a risk taker. You may not do well here.
Oh, wow.
You need to be careful." And I thought, you're right, and I might not do well here, and I'm not going to be careful.
Yeah.
I'm going to work as hard as I can. And I remember telling the lady,
But you also might do remarkable things here.
Yeah, I remember I said, BP says all this stuff, but I don't get promoted unless I deliver that, and so I'm going to do that.
I'm going to do that.
Promoted, right.
Yeah, even if they don't ask me to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Here's the thing. I mean, let's cut to the chase. It's a safety question, right?
Sure.
The question wasn't, do you do work or safety? The question was, you do both. So
Right.
a lot of people in organizations choose one or the other. They
Right.
say, I can't get a lot of work done if I do safety. And then the people who don't want to work say, oh, I use safety to not work.
Right.
I think both of them are chicken shit.
Right.
It's a lot harder to work safe, but if you put your head down and do it at a place like BP, you're going up.
You're going up.
You're going up.
And what you're really talking about there, and safety is just one idea there,
Yeah.
but it's how do you integrate all of the pieces of your business so that you're not saying, and I'll say this analogy, because my profession is safety,
Yeah.
but I'll say, let's don't talk about it in terms of, hey, we got this job to do, and oh, here we got to do it safely. It's like, hey, how do we do this job? And safety is just inherent in how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And any business process, whether it's supply chain or
There's risk.
any of those things can be, how do you just, this is just part of how we operate, right? And when we get into, when you were at MD, you had some really unique techniques as a CEO there. But before we get there, so 10 years at BP, you move up through BP, and then what?
Well, so I want to tell you about some things that happened at BP. So, because I went places and took jobs they wouldn't, I got to work with some really cool guys.
Yeah.
My OC manager in the Permian Basin, Dave McKinnon, was phenomenal. I got to work for another OC manager in Wyoming, Jerry Austin. Love the guy, to this day, phenomenal. But what happened was, along this 10-year journey, I decided. I will not mention this name, but I had a manager early on, and here I am hanging my head again, like, golly, man, this guy's in front. This guy's horrible. Like, I don't know how to say it. Like, he's not a bad person. He doesn't wake up and think he wants to harm anyone. He's kind, but he's horrible as a manager.
Sure.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
And I finally just like, well. But what had happened slightly prior to this guy, that's what I got to tell you. So I go to work for BP at the Crane gas plant.
Crane, Texas.
Okay. Block 31.
Oh, yeah.
I
I've been
work
out
Block
there.
31. I work Crane. I work all between them on maintenance. And
I think Block 31's an Oxy plant now.
yeah. So they have a rope rescue team. And the the ERT, okay?
Yeah. The high angle rescue guys.
Yeah, so I want to go. The reason I want to be on rope rescue, I've already told you I'm an adrenaline junkie, but for me, you get to go down to the coast. They got to, I feel so stupid saying this, but they got to rappel off the side of a battleship, and I wanted to do it because the company paid for it.
Yeah, I don't think that's stupid at all. That sounds amazing.
So my actual goal was to rappel off the side of it. So I said, let me join the ERT, and they're like, hey. So they got this thing locked down with all the employees or volunteers at the fire department.
Sure.
So they're getting trained from the oil company and the Crane volunteer fire department's well funded,
Yeah,
So they're like, look, everybody wants to be on the rope rescue, man. You got to at least be an EMT. So I was like, fine. So I go up and sign up for a night class to take an EMT course. Because I'm going to get on that thing.
I'm going to rappel off battleship.
Well, and they have tuition reimbursement. And I
Right.
thought about it when I went to work. I got to do something different. Well, I went and took an EMT course. And during that course, I didn't really like the teacher. His name was Leland. And so I wasn't shocked that I didn't like the teacher because that seemed real familiar. But what wasn't familiar is how much I liked being in school. Because I had hated school at the end. Here I am about 30 years old now. And I'm sitting in a classroom, and I'm super freaking excited to be learning this stuff.
Do you think it's because it was something you could directly apply to what you were doing professionally?
No, I just think that at one period of my life, if you really want to dig down and get personal, because I don't think how you can be a successful entrepreneur if you don't study yourself.
Sure.
At one point in my life, I just got so sick of being the talented, gifted, bright kid that I just wanted to be dumb. And I just kind of checked out all that.
Yeah.
And I just went to work in the oil field. Now, I could be dumb if I wanted. I could be smart.
I could just move heavy
dumb.
things and be okay.
I could move heavy shit. I could be the smartest guy on the crew easy.
Yep.
Not, or at least think I was, right?
Sure.
So,
sure.
But then I went to school and I went, man, you really missed out on some stuff. So maybe that was fun. Maybe you should take another course.
Yeah.
And I signed up for a course called Human Relations. And two ladies, Connie Nichols and Sue Jones, were the teachers. And that course changed my life. The trajectory of my life just instantly changed.
So you decided you're going to take another class, You say that these teachers change your life. How'd they change your life?
Well, so I don't, they, first thing we do is we go in class and they said, hey, and look, they don't work there now, so I'll tell on them. They said, hey, I'm real sorry. This is the way colleges work. You have to buy this book because it's the way they set it up, and they have to make money. But here's the deal. You can do whatever you want with them because we're not going to use them. I'd like you to go buy Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay. Or 7 Habits. Yeah, that's the book. Yeah. I'm getting caught in my words, but everyone knows the Covey book, right? Right. And we spent a semester studying the book and other human relations topics, right? But
by the way, the department heads ask you to buy those books, specific ones, because they wrote them.
Probably.
100% they did. Yeah. Or they had a hand in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, funny story.
They're getting plenty of money out of that.
I met Alan Greenspan at the Texas Federal Reserve one day, and the person I was with was like, why are you so excited? And I said, because he wrote my textbook in college for economics.
Cool. That's pretty cool.
And he was the chairman of the Federal Reserve. But, but at one point in one class, and what I'm fixing to tell you, I think is I think for some reason, some people grow up where their compass is just correct, and some people grow up where it's a little wobbly, and mine was a little wobbly. Yeah. And but they said the situation you're in today is a direct result of the choices you made yesterday. And man, pretty basic stuff. Right. Earth shattering for me. Earth shattering, mind blowing. Blew my mind.
You'd never even considered that.
No, I was just somehow a victim of this, or I was just floating through. I didn't really think about it, but when it was just really clear, it's like, wow, I am responsible for this. So then I thought, okay, well, and I used to have this whole thing wrote up about this, right? It's just kind of a fleeting thought, but I said, well, if what I did now is creating a trajectory to my future like this, if I make a different choice, I can alter my future. If the condition I'm in today is the result of the decisions I made yesterday, if I make a different choice today, I can alter my future.
Yeah, if my condition is a lagging indicator, I can fix that.
Yeah, so then I start saying, okay, that's future 1 if I don't do anything. Future 2 is if I do this. Future 3, future 4, and then all of a sudden I just opened up an array of endless future possibilities. Because if my actions create the future, and if I have control of that, then I can steer and go where I want to go.
Yeah, the Waller multiverse.
Yeah. So then I've got this manager, okay, now I'm thinking about this shit because I did make this goal. Yeah. When I started over at BP, my title or ARCA was labor. I worked on a gang, okay? We worked in the compressor house, then I transferred to Odessa on the last gang that probably anybody ever met of a company gang. Company gangs are rare. Roustabout gangs, and I own a roustabout company. They're not Exxon employees anymore. They're but back then we were, and there was very few of us. So I went to work on a gang. But they said you got to write this goals thing. BP's got this thing where you be 1 year, 3 year, 10 year, whatever. And I wrote it down. In 10 years, I wrote I want to be the CEO of a multinational corporation, and my title was laborer. I literally said it on my check. Sure. I had left a 12-year career as a senior type technician, and started over as a roustabout. Right. Because again, the more compressors I get, the more they give me. I'm done. You know. Yeah. And so, kind of what happened at that point, I didn't realize it at that time, but that was kind of my second or third foray into this Renaissance thing, where I just recreate myself. Sure. And I didn't know I could. I just accidentally did it. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's an important message: is that you can recreate yourself at any stage in your life. Yeah. You just got to be prepared to go through a grind in the beginning of it.
Right. And figure out what you want. It helps.
Right. That helps. That does help. That does help.
So, I go over there, start over as a laborer, and I write down this, and my manager calls me out on it in a meeting, makes fun of me for Eric wanting to be the CEO, what the F, and I'm telling you, man, it hurt my feelings.
Hey, go be the CEO of that rake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Go be the CEO of that shovel, Waller.
Yeah. It was horrible, man. And then I get this one boss finally, and I'm like, I realize at some point it's this learning thing opens up. I realize there's a possibility, and then I'm faced with this manager who I've told you is a nice person. I'm not here to disparage him, but his management style couldn't have felt worse on me. I couldn't have put on a coat made of cactus. Would have felt better. Wow. And I apply for
assuming the cactus is on the inside of the coat. Right, yeah, on the outside it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'll tell you what up here, but So I apply for a job that's like 2 levels up.
Okay.
And 2 levels up at BP
It's a jump.
That's hard, right?
It's a jump.
Now, but the point is, I've been working hard. I've been getting my jobs done early. I've been keeping my sites clean. I've been doing the safety no one else is to do. Now I'm managing all the confined space.
Right.
Because nobody wants to do safety. And I looked around the room, and by the way, at this point, I'd taken a marketing class.
Oh.
And they talked about market differentiation. And I started applying the things I learned in school. How does Eric differentiate himself? And safety was the clear answer, because I couldn't be a better roustabout than Eli. He'd been doing it 25 years.
Right.
And his brother Jake.
And at some point, those types of jobs, you can only be there's a level that you get to, and that's just where it is.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't be a better operator than Howard. I couldn't be, but they all didn't like the safety thing, and I could be really good at that. And BP was really saying, "Hey guys, we really want you to do this.
Sure.
We really mean it." And I started doing it, and people made fun of me, including my managers. But guess who? When they had to do a field tour, when the bosses came, they sure came to my side.
Of course they did.
Because they knew it was safe.
They knew it was safe, and they knew it was going to be done right.
And they knew I wanted to come up, and I wasn't going to act like an ass on site.
Right, on site.
On site, right, in private.
Yeah.
Oh, I was a horrible employee for a lot of managers.
Sure.
I'll tell you straight up, and they'll tell you, but they're not on the show.
Yeah.
So I go there, and I start going to college and doing this stuff, and then I just really break one time, and I realize that I apply on this job, and Dave McKenna I told you about. Dave actually retired his career as my vice president of operations when I was a CEO years later. But
that's how I know that name.
That's how you know
because I
Dave.
met Dave.
Right.
When I came up and I talked to you guys.
Absolutely.
So I met Dave.
Phenomenal engineer.
I knew that name, and I was just trying to
30-plus year,
Great
engineer,
guy.
operation guy. And he's multi-generational, family-owned oil company, Pennsylvania. That's old oil, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he calls me in the little side, it ain't even his office. We're having a meeting, and then he kind of, this is how it really went down, kind of out of the side of he calls me in the office, which is Alfonso's office, ain't even his office, shuts the door. There's people outside. It's really awkward. It's a little room, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting interviewed for this job, man.
I would have thought, oh, no, I'm getting fired today.
Oh, no, I'm like, finally word got out.
Yeah. Now he knows who I am.
I'm about to ask for some more money, too. You know what I mean? I'm getting off call.
That's right. And
the interview starts like this. You know there's no way in hell you're getting this job, right?
Nice.
That's literally how the job starts. And so not one to be kicked around, I says, well, yeah.
Yeah, sure, of course.
I'm not dummy, but I felt really dumb, you know?
Yeah.
And he says, well, I got to know why you applied for it. I think he's going to nip it in the bud if I'm just going to waste everybody's time applying for jobs, right?
Right.
I said, man, look, my boss is trying to make me be a pumper. And there's nothing wrong with being a pumper. And I relief pump on the weekends. And I'm not threatening you. But if you make me a pumper, I don't know if it's this year or next year or the next year, but it won't work.
Yeah, I won't be here.
I can't do it. I can't do it. There's guys that can show up and do it the same every day. I'm not the guy.
And for the benefit of the people that aren't oil and gas, what's a pumper?
Well, they're the guys that are responsible for very detailed checks of the operation in a methodical fashion. They work hard. It's in the elements, but it's once you get good at it, it's a routine. Even though it's hard and different, dangerous, it's very routine.
It's a routine, and that is not how you like to live life.
No,
that's not Waller.
It's horrible for me. Right? I live where the rubber meets the sky.
Yeah.
They're where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
And so it's difficult. I do both, but and he listened and he's like, okay, well, what really happened in the background I didn't know, but they've been trying to fill this job out in southeast New Mexico. Nobody would go. Nobody go to Artesia.
Yeah, well, Artesia's terrible.
Well, I loved Artesia, by the way. I made wonderful friends there. We were there 4 years, but I'd go. He said, well, would you move? I said, hell yeah. And then they gave me 4 pulling units. So I go from being a compressor guy to a roustabout relief pumper for a couple years to now they've handed me 4 pulling units, right? It's not my fault they never asked if I did any of it ever.
So now, and so you're a tool pusher at that point.
Well, actually, I had one rig that I worked like a tool pusher, and then I managed 3 fishermen that ran the other rig. So,
okay.
Every part
a
of the
little bit of a
different
hybrid role.
Southeast New Mexico, you get basically a a reverse unit operator.
Yeah.
So you carry a reverse unit swivel with you, and
Right.
it's a high speed package. It ain't like East Texas,
Yeah, it's made for moving.
Yeah, and I struggled when I got to East Texas with the speed.
Yep.
The kit's different, but so they sent me there, and it went well, and I'd worked really hard. I moved it from 4 to 3. My repair grade's got nothing. I laid down a rig. I got the backlog cleared. I started doing the safety again. Then when the guys that ran the main group of the wells were like, Eric's not qualified to do that. And they were right. And, the guy's name was Dan Westmore, and he was a great guy. And he was very vocal and said, Eric is not qualified to run these rigs. This is dangerous. I don't think he should do it. And I said, appreciate your opinion, Dave, Dan, but I got the job. And now I got to kick your ass.
Yeah, and now I must destroy you.
Well, and not like that, but I'm going to defend my team, right?
Sure.
And so I knew that safety was that because this had been brought up in this environment. I had to. That was my chink in my armor. But it was we just fixed it, right? We made sure that when safety came, we were good. Right. It worked in Odessa, it worked in Crane, and it worked in.
It turns out if you commit to it, it works wherever you are.
Well, and the other thing is if somebody pays you and they give you like a list of 3 or 4 things they really want you to do, it pays off to do those 3 or 4 things.
If nothing else, do those 3 or 4. Just do those things.
Right. Well, you fast forward and there's another guy, Jerry Austin, who has the same problem. And he's talking to Dave McKinney. He goes, I can't get anybody to go to Rollins, Wyoming or Wamsutter, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Well, of course they won't go. And Dave says, I got the guy for you, man.
I know.
I got the guy.
I've got just the sucker that'll go there.
Yeah, and he'll work like a man on fire. And I went up there and I did, and I did a really good job there under a really kick-ass leader. And I did some things there that were amazing. I mean, me and my team delivered some projects around First Oil that I'd challenge BP to show me how they're doing it faster, because it wasn't a year later I left, it was gone and destroyed. Yeah. We had global leaders come and look at what we were doing. It worked well.
I experienced that kind of a thing too at when I worked for Neighbors. We built out a high-angle rescue, derrick worker rescue program, and then we built out a world-class well control school. Ended up getting API accreditation on the school, and I was in charge of all of that. With the guidance of the VP of safety, Steve Olson, who's a huge mentor to me, and he recently retired from Anadarko. But he, when he left that company, it just went away because it took a lot of care to maintain it. The system was built, but it just went away, and that's. When I was younger, it bothered me a lot more. Now that I'm older, a little bit, you kind of go, well, that's just the way of it. People want to come in and do their own thing, even if what's there is probably pretty good too. So, but yeah, that's a frustration that I don't think will ever not be there.
Look, I'm a little frustrated, but the truth is that project was a result of a guy I got introduced at BP. That was kind of the second time my life got changed, right? Yeah. So first off, I introduced myself to Sue and Connie, in the class, right?
Right, and your teachers.
Well, then BP hires this guy named Don Kiefer. Okay, Don's a ex-VP of manufacturing at Harley Davidson or something at Harley. I say but he's a VP at Harley. There's another guy, Nelson Rapenning. He's a dean at MIT, and these guys get 3 chances at BP to do this thing. And my boss, my manager Jerry, says, "I got just the guy. Right? He'll do anything. He wants to get promoted. He works hard. Yeah. And I want to ask Kisser, I delivered, and I'm proud of what I delivered. And
right. It wasn't that you were just trying to move up. It's that you genuinely would get, ass deep in these things and learn them and do them.
Keep in mind, I had got pissed at that man. I mean, I can't tell you how much it drove me getting made fun of over my goals. It infuriated me. So you got to understand, I'm trying to be the CEO of BP.
Of course, that's your mentality.
So, I'm trying to do these things.
And your thought is, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. And the truth is, I later I learned I didn't want that, even if I could have or it was available. But at the time, it was the only job I had. I loved the company. I ride for the brand. And, we were doing this really cool stuff. Well, they introduced me to Don, and Don said, hey, man, if you'll do what I tell you, I'll teach you how to do what I do. And what I do is I ran a 5,000, 10,000 person manufacturing company in China with sticky notes. I ran the manufacturing at or whichever division he was in, with
Right,
sticky
right.
notes. All right. Okay, now you're talking to me.
Well, this is different. Yeah, this is a different thing.
Yeah, because the thing is, I got a bullshit meter, and it's why I didn't do good in school.
Yeah.
I kind of say I don't know why. The truth is, I can smell it when it ain't true. And you can't tell me it's just because. Like, it just doesn't work for me.
Sure.
And
I remember when I met you, one of the first things you said to me, it was not the first time we met because we just had coffee and we chatted a bit. It was the second time where we actually sat down and just kind of hung out. And you said, I don't normally expand my friend group, but there's something about you. And I think it's that bullshit thing. Like, I generally try to be a pretty straight shooting fellow. And so that you do definitely have that and are not afraid to tell people that you do.
Like, I'm going to give you an example. Today, you see me in a T-shirt.
Yeah.
When I go to work in an executive role, I put on a button-down shirt with a collar.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do you know why a collar's on a shirt?
No.
I'm pretty sure it's to hide the colored ribbon that you tie around your neck, called a tie.
Yeah.
I can't understand why I have to wear a tie, and why do I need a collar for a tie for an ancient ritual to wear a silk ribbon around your neck so you couldn't be offensive so they could yank you. Don't grab my tie, I'll whoop your ass.
Is that what that's for?
That's what I heard, but let's be honest. Why would a collar exist on your shirt with a flap and the buttons? It's all made to hold this decoration. I don't want to be decorated. I don't want to play that game, right?
That's fair.
I don't want to do it.
That's fair.
But I had to.
But you can, though.
But I can, and I will, and I'll look nice in a suit, and I feel good in a suit.
And I think that's important for people to understand is that I had this conversation with my youngest daughter. I said, man, to get anywhere in life, learn to be comfortable in any situation, have conversations with anybody, and hold your own in all of them.
Yeah, look, I don't care who's watching this if they're trying to get better. If you're 18 or 38 or 48, get a good fitting suit, man. You're going to need it for something. No, get a good fitting one.
Yeah.
You'll feel good.
And you recently lost a ton of weight too, so did you have to I remember we talked a while back and you were lamenting the fact that you'd gone and they were like, Mr. Waller, this is as much as we can take this up.
Listen,
and you had some damn nice
suits. There was
suits,
a point
man.
in my life not too long ago that we were rolling hard.
Yeah.
I mean, there was money to burn and oil.
Yeah.
The oil feels good when it's good, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, I had a lot of custom-made suits, and I was 315 pounds.
Right.
And I'm 210 today.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I you know what? They're all gone. And it's thousands of dollars, and I'm not going to get fat fit in them.
No.
So.
That's I've also over the years with jiu-jitsu and everything dropped a couple pant sizes, and my wife, she'll go, nothing ever fits anymore, and we have to this. I was like, are you really mad at me because I'm thinner? Like,
yeah,
help me understand that.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's just we have all this money tied up in clothes.
I know.
We'll get new ones.
And look, you take $1,000 custom suit, it's still $20 at the garage sale. I don't care.
That's right. That's right.
But I'm gonna get my 20.
Yeah, that price point doesn't transfer.
Yeah. But so that's kind of how it went. And when I met Don introduced me to dynamic work design, which him and Nelson spent, and they continue to develop that science. It was very early science back then, and my project was successful.
Yeah.
I had a target, and that's when I learned another really good trick. And it's a trick that I'm careful about saying because you can't abuse this trick. But Jerry Austin came to me and said, I need you to reduce the time from when drilling moves off to when you're selling gas by 90%.
Oh, wow.
In 90 days. Look, you got to understand, BP is one of the biggest corporations in the world.
Yep.
Convincing them to change anything is next to impossible. You have to fight
it takes
tooth and nail.
It takes 90 days to get the conversation started at a company like that.
To get an improvement at BP,
right,
you have to be so committed. It's why they don't get more, right? It's designed to just kill creativity. But if you're a super smart scientist, they'll listen to you. But if anybody says, "Hey, I could save you 40%," they're like, "We're busy." Well,
yeah, that's right.
But somehow they advance technology on a global scale, on a macro scale.
Yeah.
But in a micro scale, they suck. In macro, they're just boom, phenomenal. But Don teaches me these tools, man, and they start letting me get things done without Six Sigma, without lean, without calculated math. And what really happened was it helped me have a better conversation with people.
Gotcha.
Right? It helped me talk about things being on or off target. At BP, we had a stoplight, green and yellow and red. And Don said, I don't understand that. Yellow, what does yellow mean? It means I'm nearly
Right.
failing or I'm almost winning.
Yeah.
Yellow's gone. So I don't have a yellow
man.
light anymore. You're on target or you're off.
What an interesting way to think about yellow. Are you halfway into the forest or halfway out of the forest?
Yeah,
kind
and
of
that's
thing. Yeah.
and that's why everybody's yellow, because they're just saying, I don't know, it's
Yeah,
doesn't look
right.
good.
Yellow's the catch-all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit in, but I'm not finished.
Yeah.
Or I'm a little behind. I'd say yellow.
I don't do yellow.
Yeah.
I do, we're on or off, man. And doesn't, now if you're off target, people are trained up, that's bad. It's not. It's just off target. Okay,
Yeah,
what do we do to fix it?
It's a different conversation. Hey, why and what are we doing, and is the target realistic?
Well, I tell
those types
people,
of things.
let's watch this, because the train, you look at a giant train wreck, it wobbled way back there.
Sure.
Let's catch the wobble.
And so you started, and that's the method that I'm familiar with when you were at MD. That visual management method, which is unbelievably cool.
Yeah. And I started learning that at BP.
At BP, yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's where I met Don. And so Don gave me those tools that were, when I took over as the CEO of MD, the very first meeting, I flew to Chicago O'Hare Airport, got a room in a hotel. They took the furniture out, put a table in it. Me and Don sat down with a bunch of white sticky notes and mapped out how I was going to drill 100 wells in a year.
Wow.
With one rig on the ground in February. Right? So we used sticky notes. We drilled 88 of them before they pulled the plug because prices dropped.
Sure.
So
But you'd have hit the 100, though.
I would have hit the 100.
Absolutely.
We took it from 2,500 barrels a day or 2,200 to 17,000.
That's
in
amazing.
less than a year. And so, but these tools that Don gave me were amazing, right? And so keep in mind, you
life-changing.
still haven't heard me talk about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Other than
failing in a compression business.
Other than failing in the compressor business. Well, then along the way, I start getting these ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so I start trying to do these side hustles. Like everybody said, you got to get a side hustle.
Right.
So at one point, I'm going to give this idea away in case anybody wants it. You can have it. I don't want it.
What'll happen is you'll say it.
Trademark.
And then I'll edit that out and I'll just take it.
I decided I was going to take out the Chamber of Commerce, and I went and bought like 200 something websites. I bought every state and every major urban area in every city that I liked of myonlinechamber.com. So it'd be OdessaOnlineChamber.com, MidlandOnlineChamber.com, TexasOnlineChamber.com. And so what I was going to do is create a free business-to-business social media network like Facebook, where you could recommend businesses. Like you had to have a business. Your page could join. You could link up with others. You could have community businesses. It would all be free. And then eventually I'd convert it to an ad revenue, because what do small business owners need? You need to know about insurance. You need to also, all of a sudden, I'd get this ad revenue from the guys.
So you were going to build LinkedIn.
But yeah, kind of. But LinkedIn's for people, right?
Yeah, right.
People say, this was truly a business,
just specific
social network.
business to business, B2B.
And I bought all these websites, right? And then I just couldn't get it to work, right? And well, then what happened was Woodbine. So I had sunk all this money in this thing and on the side, and then Woodbine happened, and that turned into MD America, and that
Right.
So I had just once again, 10 years into my career, I ran into a manager, and before I went, I was warned.
Yeah.
This guy's a dick.
And it went from when you left BP. Is this when you were leaving BP? You're going there?
No, I transferred from Wyoming, so I had some personal issues come on.
Okay.
They were fast tracking me. I was headed to Durango, Colorado next. I was working my ass off to be the first OCM that wasn't an engineer or a geologist.
And people need to understand, oil and gas is a unique industry, and you can advance your career, but you can move around a little bit.
If you move, you go faster.
If you're willing to, you can for sure. And so, but it's definitely a challenging path when you're doing that.
Well, so personally, my life wasn't working out on the personal side, and I had to go to them and say, "Look, I got to go back home."
Yep.
And they facilitated transfer back to Block 31 Crane Gas Plant, where I started.
Yeah.
10 years prior.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty tough transition. But I showed up trying to do a good job. But I ran into, I'll just keep it short. I ran into a manager who...
You don't have to keep it short.
Look, man, I'm going to tell you what.
I
I walked in there and gave him a 2-week notice and said, look, I know the drill. I was trying to do the right thing. You tell me when I tell other people. Tell me what to say.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be, I just want to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm a square peg in a round hole. Y'all aren't going to change, and I'm not. He says, I don't know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
just shocked. But then I guess I show up 3 or 4 days, and then I'm in a meeting and projects are getting took away. And it's clear they've had a meeting and everybody knows I'm leaving, but I'm still sitting on, what do you want me to say? I won't tell a single person.
Right.
And then people start asking me, I heard you're leaving. People said you're leaving. And I'm keeping the commitment of,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything.
Somebody's definitely saying
But my manager,
something.
who I know is bad anyway, so I'm not shocked.
Right.
But I'm just like, I've never done this in my career, man. And I send a letter that says, hey, man, when you hired me, it didn't go so well, and you made me drive my personal vehicle to Crane, Texas to get this junky truck.
Mm-hmm.
And you come over here to Lakeside Drive in Odessa and pick it up, because I didn't sign up for 2 weeks of this bullshit. That was it.
Yep.
Because I'm not coming back. Like, I'm not getting treated that way.
I'm done.
I'm done. And I don't have to go tell HR. I don't have to get on a program. I don't have to get, because that's just how you get fired slow.
That's right.
Come on, man.
That's right.
Let's be real.
That's right.
I'm not going down like that. I'm going to leave on my terms. And, Jerry calls me and says, what the hell? I don't remember the exact conversation, but, how does a star student go from star student to quit?
Yeah.
Tell me. I said, and the truth was, it's probably the most true things I'd ever said. I said, if I stay, I got to be less of. He said, what's that mean? I said, like, I'm telling you, less of. I got to show up. Whatever I got to eat is going to make me less of a man. I'll be less of an employee. I'll be less of a father.
It's going to take something out of me. It's going to take a piece of me out.
Yeah, and I worked my ass off to get here. Man, I called my dad. He says, my dad's over in the Bohai Bay of China on a rig, and he's like, what are you doing, man? Why are you quitting? There's people killed for your job. He spent his whole career out there, right? And I said, they let them kill each other. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I went to work. I took an equity deal for a debt collection agency.
So now you're out of the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'll leave on my terms. I'm done. I didn't even look for a job. And I go back to Wyoming and I start running this debt collection agency as a chief operating officer, and we work out equity package.
Yeah.
He buys it from his family, 100 plus years, and less than a year later, I leave. I give the equity back. He's a great guy. I didn't earn it. We're not going to argue. I did some good things when I was there. I learned a lot of cool stuff. But the oil field called back, and they said, hey, Eric, we got a deal. I got a friend of mine called and said, I've got this entrepreneur friend. He's going to put together this oil company. We're going to buy this stuff. He's going to borrow all this money. And, man, I just think he'd be perfect for this. Like, the way you work, and we're going to drill some wells. He says, you ever drilled a well? I said, no. He said, don't tell him. It's okay. I'll figure it out.
We'll figure that out. Just get a tally book and stand around mad. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been on a lot of rigs fixing their compressors.
Sure.
I sat at the kitchen table, and I've heard on the phone my dad. I've heard all the stories.
Sure,
I work in the oil field. It's not like it's foreign.
I'm not uncomfortable around them anyway.
No, I got the same clothes and gear they got. I drive down the same road, And, well, we get over there and we go to work for this guy, and he's got a manufacturing company, right? And so he's just crazy entrepreneur, is going to do all this stuff, and he sold this big thing already. He's got a bunch of money. So, look, here's the thing. He picks me up in private jet. All right, I'm paying attention.
Yeah, that helps. That's unique.
I'm flying to Washington, D.C. I'm in the Ghanaian embassy. Mm-hmm. I'm doing some crazy stuff. I'm with Noble and Apache, and I'm in West Africa. I mean, and then we buy an oil field. And then I watch this guy do it, and I work for him, and it was pretty amazing.
What's the name of that company?
Well, the company we ended up forming was called Woodbine Acquisition.
Okay.
The team, I was just a very early entrant to that team. There were about 11 of us that
Sure.
put that together, 9 or 11. That dwindled down to 3, 10 years later. Mm-hmm. It was 3. So this is 10 years at BP, and then the next phase of this thing's 10 years.
10 years.
Another 10, right?
With a year-ish outside of oil and gas.
10 months, yeah. Now, they kind of joke, you worked for us a pregnancy, and it was 40 weeks or something.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I got out of oil and gas for about a little over a year and a half, and I remember having a conversation with you about it. And it was the 2015 time frame. I'd been laid off from energy and exploration, and I'd gone to work back at Xterra. They had transitioned to Arch Rock, and I was in a sales role and all of that. I had like a year runway. And I remember,
lucky you. Look what I had to do. I still didn't get a compressor sales job all these years.
Right. Well, it's not as cool as I thought it'd be. Honestly, when I got over there, I realized, man, it's a hard job.
Yeah.
It is a hard job. And the most frustrating things would be I'd see guys that would because I wasn't there long enough to build this type of book of business, but I would see guys that would build a whale account, and Exterran would say, awesome job, or Archrock at that time, hey, we're going to make that a house account, and I'll go do it again.
Yeah.
And I thought that was chicken shit. But
it was chicken shit.
It's super chicken shit. But at the end of the day, I remember having a conversation with you, and you said, what are your reservations? And I was like, all I've ever done is oil and gas. And you said, your skill set will transfer.
Yeah.
And I think it was important for me to get out of oil and gas, or for anyone else to get out of that, maybe they've done it forever, and see that, oh, shit, I can do other things and do them well. And for me, the industry I went into was tech, and they're geared a little differently than oil and gas, and similar to what you would say, the oil and gas people, those are my people.
Yeah.
So when I got back in, I was like, yeah, this is where I belong. But
I need to tell you how I ended up at that debt collection agency.
yeah.
So I'm there working at Wamsutter, Wyoming. I'm living in Rollins, and we work a 980 schedule. Okay. Which I don't really get off very much because we're drilling 220 wells a year, okay? But but I'm off some, okay?
You have some time.
And I have a company job and company hours, and I have some privileges that you don't when you're on the service side.
Sure.
And I start a side hustle. So Don Kiefer's teaching he's teaching all this stuff about this visual management and how to, he's a business consultant, a management consultant.
Right.
And by this time I've earned my college degree, but I've had to start over at 3 different colleges. So I have a lot of hours, and I just kept taking leadership and management courses.
Okay.
Leadership, every time I had to earn new courses, I would, try to avoid math or accounting again. But I was really interested in leadership. A bad leadership's what sparked my journey, so I needed to be a good leader,
Right.
And look, even the best leaders, I think we all know, there's a lot of failures along the way, and they got faces on them. They're not projects.
That's right.
They got faces on them. So, but anyways, I start doing business consulting, and this is how I meet the collection agency guys, because the guy's buying a company. It's 98 years old, 99 years old. It's a family business that's been in business, and he's purchasing it from his parents. He's worked there, but he's like, look, we got to fix some things, we got to change some things. So I come in as a consultant and start helping him lean out his management team.
Nice.
And then now I'm back in Crane, and things aren't going good.
Sure.
And he's like, come up here and let's
come back.
Yeah, and and so, but the point is, me having that's kind of where my entrepreneurial journey began again. Was I'm working at BP, I'm working day and night.
Yeah.
And somehow I decide I need to take my time off and go. But the reason wasn't necessarily to make money. I really wasn't charging too terrible much, to be honest with you. It was because, in order to learn it, I needed to teach it. I needed to, and it was very important to me because it just blew my career up. I was meeting global leaders. I was going to MIT.
So you really wanted to try to apply it and see
it worked.
And see it in action.
Because it works. So look, I got the only system in the world that I've ever seen that lets me do less work and let people get more work done with less effort. I mean, I'm highly intelligent, but I'm also naturally lazy. This is like a dream, right? The problem is it doesn't work well in Excel, and people somehow have convinced themselves that if it's not a spreadsheet, it's not real.
I'm a big fan of spreadsheets.
Yeah, I'm not.
But they have their place.
I'm an analog guy, man. What's funny is, I'll tell you this, as a little kid, I was smart, right? And nerdy. And, my first computer was a Radio Shack TRS-80. And I did not have a floppy hard drive. I had a cassette drive. And I upgraded to a 7-inch floppy. So I love technology computers.
Yep.
I'm not that grumpy old guy. The truth is, in businesses, the computer, to me right now, I will tell you, a monitor, 99% what it is a thing to get in the way of people speaking directly to each other.
I agree.
And, in my organization, send me a face mail. Call me or walk down here. Because the email's going to get ignored for a big, large portion. Because I'm getting older, I don't see as well. People need to understand us older people can't see as well. Now I got to get my glasses, carry them around. Every time I look at my phone, I'm supposed to high-speed type you because you want to play email ping pong.
I don't like when you say us older people.
Well, I'm getting there, right?
I'm definitely getting there too. My vision was perfect till about 42.
Right.
And I remember we were at, it was probably maybe 43, whatever. I'm 46 now. I remember being at Walgreens picking up prescriptions because that's on my to-do list now for sure.
Yeah.
But I remember just standing there while I was waiting, and they had those readers, and I just pick up a pair and put them on, look at my phone. I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Right.
I'm going to have to get a pair of these,
Right.
So, yeah. So
I start running this little side hustle. I
Right,
start
right.
consulting, and then that's when I learned. I said, wow.
there's something here.
Well, let me be clear. I mean, you got to understand, like, a lot of people I worked with knew me as the laborer that
Right.
was moving up.
Right.
These people didn't know me as any of that. I was a business consultant
Right.
when I walked in the door.
Right.
And I was telling things they had never heard before.
Right.
And I went, wow. And I had paid attention in college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reason I paid attention in college was, A, it was fun, but what happened to me along the way at BP was I would work with a bunch of guys, and I'm not disparaging anyone. This is how it is. I sat around with 5 guys who said how stupid it was that everything our management did, how stupid it was that they did this. It's just a laundry list of stupidity that corporate does. And I heard this talk till I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, it just gets in your head. And then one day I'm in class and they start talking about moving a operation from a functional to an operational role because they're amping it up. And I literally see this start happening in our organization. And everybody's like, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I'm like, no.
No,
They're flattening the organization out because oil prices is high. We're moving it up, and the dude running this knows what he's doing.
Right. They're flattening it so that we can get speed to action.
And that's what I'm going to give them, right? And
Right.
so it just blew my... So I started paying attention because my career immediately started.
Yeah, advancing.
Yeah, and that's why I paid attention. It was
Yeah.
like... And early on, it was about career advancement, but then you realize when you start leadership, and if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're a leader by default.
Yeah.
Because if you own it, you're the boss. You have functional leadership. You have all that power
Everything.
that comes from
Yeah.
that, right?
You have tactical and strategic leadership.
Absolutely. Org chart, everything.
Everything.
And so you're a leader. And for me, that's the hardest part. Because I think a lot of people, there's 2 camps of people I work with. There's one camp says you're way too hard on people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're very vocal about it. And the other camp says you let people get away with so much, Eric. Why do you? I'm just like, I wish y'all would all get in a meeting.
Right, right. Yeah, what are you seeing and what are you seeing?
Well, they're probably both right, but I don't.
Well, both think they are, for sure.
Yeah, and at any given day they are.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well,
That's
but so I just think so that side hustle works, and I realize I do have extra time. I do have technology. I can do a side hustle.
Sure.
And I'd already tried the Chamber of Commerce. Now I'm
Right.
doing this consulting deal. The very, very later on, I started the companies that I have now.
Yeah.
So, it looks like I'm a successful entrepreneur in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways I am, but the truth is I was a successful entrepreneur until I made enough money to go invest in and be a successful entrepreneur.
Sure.
I built my businesses with money that I made being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Now, they all kick ass and cash flow today, but I had a bump, and that bump was I went to work for somebody that paid good.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And trained me and
Yeah.
educated me. And as long as I just quit bitching about the corporation long enough to let them promote me, they would.
Sure. So you guys start wood-buying, and then you guys buy an oil field.
Yep.
And that's in
2011, we borrowed
Yeah.
$250 million in high-yield bonds, junk bonds.
Mm-hmm.
We 100% financed this deal. And then we flipped it in December 2013 for $550.
That's awesome.
And then we bought another 40 and flipped it for 140. So the best way to say it's about 400 turned into 7.
Yeah.
It's a good project.
That's a good project.
Or 400 million turned into 700 million. And then
Right.
I ran the company with the people who purchased it.
Right. So MD America purchases, and at that point you're named CEO.
Yes. I was the vice president of operations prior to that.
So you've gone from laborer, now you're CEO of an E&P company,
Yeah.
exploration production company. Tell me about some things you learned there.
Okay, look, I'm proud of most of what I did there.
Because that's where I met you.
Yeah, and I'm proud of most of it. Not every bit. I don't think anybody can say that. But in a big way, we took an entire team of men and women that were bullshitting and didn't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all were committed to do it, but none of us as a team had done what was fixing to be done.
Mm-hmm.
All of us pretended like we knew and could do it.
Yeah.
Maybe the others would never admit that. I don't care. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I knew I'd work day to night.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is going back on your entire career, listening to your story. It's not an arrogance. It's an understanding of who you are.
Yeah.
That if I don't know it, I'm going to outwork everybody until I do know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we did that, but and it got crazy and it got hard and we lost team members and some of it was justified, some of it was bullshit. And it when you're dealing that much money, it's crazy. Okay.
It's so much money.
But when I go to MD America, I'm going to give you kind of some highlights that happened in the first year.
Yeah.
We take
How many years were you CEO?
6.
6 years. Okay.
We take it from 1 rig to 8. We take it from 2,200 to 17,000 barrels.
In year one.
Year one. Or 12 months, from February.
Right.
I take over. We sell it in December. I take over in February.
Yeah.
The teams there were, the previous CEO who I spoke to today, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he left. That's pretty common, right? During the sales, CEO leaves, right? Matter of fact, we were all going to leave at one point, and he left.
Made you a good offer.
They did, and but the reality is that in those 6 years, I got the company rated by Moody's and S&P.
Man, that's awesome.
It is awesome. We were the smallest oil company ever rated, and when I let the rating go in 2021. Or 2020 when I let it go. 2020 we'd been rated for 4 or 5 years and we'd increased our rating. I refinanced and borrowed $525 million, half a B.
Half a B.
Yeah, I got rated. Then I went in the process, raised the 525. Within a year, I raised equity in China, brought it over. Took that down, or 2 years, paid the 525 off, came back, borrowed another 140 million, drilled 120 plus wells, took the property from 14,000 acres to roughly 70.
Jeez.
When you guys died over there,
yeah.
we just started making hay what we could. We advanced technology. We took horizontal technology to another level in that area, in that play. We took, and I say we because it's the science and technology that comes behind a team like this. It ain't me. I'm the CEO. I get to brag, but all the engineering, geology, all the just straight up worker bees that are paying the invoices, that are unlocking the door, that are putting the coffee in. I mean, that thing is a lot of people. But, we got records we hold today. And we were the first ever Chinese-owned oil company. And I know that excites a lot of people in a negative way. But I want to talk about that because I got really strong emotions about that. Anybody knows me, I'm America first, man.
Absolutely.
But I'm not everybody else sucks either. And we need to operate fairly. What happened after the financial, this is my understanding, what happened after the financial crisis of 2009, the big meltdown.
Yep.
This Dodd-Frank and other, the reason that.
It was like 08, 09.
The reason the Chinese bought our company and not the next highest bidder is because they can bid more.
Yeah.
And the reason they can bid more is they're not legally restricted from valuing things a certain way like our competitors are.
Yeah.
So we sold that company to the Chinese because they bid a lot more than our competitors.
It was a better deal.
And they bid more because the American government got in the way of our guys doing it.
Okay.
So anybody don't like that, I'm sorry. You're looking at
that's
that
the way
many
it
millions,
is.
you turn it down.
That's the way it is.
Right. But in order to do that, we had to run through the Senate Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. We were under management by the Department of Defense. I was in and out of the Bush Institute. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on over there. We were watched, we were managed, and I was the CEO.
And you would expect that.
Yeah.
I mean, you would expect that.
Yeah, it was kind of odd. I got to go back and forth to China several times, big national conventions, and it's pretty cool stuff. But, That probably was the most unique part of it, was the Chinese connection. I cannot tell you how hard it was for me to be my first CEO role for the Chinese in a first ever, with the culture clash that happens when you put us two together to work that you cannot believe or understand.
How'd you?
They don't want to mess with us, and we don't want to mess with them. And
right, but both of you understand the business opportunity involved, so you kind of put those differences aside.
Yeah, but I got to be honest with you. I like the Chinese. They work their ass off. I mean, there's certain cultures that I have respect for all cultures, but my work ethic is really attracted to certain cultures.
Yep.
Hispanic culture. Chinese work their ass off. People think they don't. They do.
Yeah.
So they work hard from that perspective, complete respect. Culturally, though, I'm going to give you a story that's the best way to explain the difference. When I introduce myself, I say my name's Eric Waller.
Mm-hmm.
They say my name's Waller Eric. They identify with their clan first,
their family,
and they're
first.
a person second. It's a very different mindset. You can't understand it.
It is definitely different, and
they do things for the greater good, but they work hard for individuals. But the greater good is always on their mind.
It's ingrained in them.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's communism or their Asian culture. I don't know, but it's very different than what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so the individualism, the collectivism are a clash, and then you throw a language barrier in there that is intense, and then you throw these behaviors around hygiene and waiting in line that are culturally different, and they're looking at we're doing things that they're shocked, and they're doing things that we're shocked.
And you had the double whammy of not only being an individual American but a Texan, which is a whole different level of individualism.
Listen, I took Mandarin lessons, and I couldn't imagine my teacher, the poor lady. I mean, I can barely speak English.
I've got a funny story about that. It's not Mandarin; it's Spanish. But when I worked for Neighbors, they got Midland College to do an oil field for gringos, basically Spanish for gringos. He was taught by this Argentinian guy, and this dude named Jeff Johnson was one of our operations managers. And he knew what he was asking, but he was sitting in there, and he raises his hand. And the dude's from Palestine, Texas, right? And it's just redneck. And he goes, when I'm out in the field, they call me El Diablo Blanco. What does that mean? And dude, we fell apart laughing. But that teacher just is straight faced. He goes, "Senor, they are call you the White Devil." It was the funniest thing ever, man. But yeah, bridging those language gaps is hard. But bridging English to Spanish, I can get there.
Yeah.
Mandarin's a whole different thing, man.
It's not just that. You got to understand it. Like CNPC is the Chinese National Petroleum Company. They got 1 million employees.
Jeez.
1 million. I mean, we had like 22.
Yeah, right.
We got up to like 70 at our biggest.
Right.
But
God, 1 million.
Yeah. So the concept, how they think, how they move, how they plan is different. They're also directed by their government. So where the American government's told what not to do, they're told what they'd appreciate if they would do.
Yeah.
I mean, they have national directives, and they're very clear, these goals, and they'll send goals out to all the companies. And not like it's not like people think, but their government system's different.
Yeah, it's different. It's just different.
Yeah.
And there are probably some advantages to that system, but there are drawbacks as well.
I'll give you an example. When I'm meeting with them, the guys explained to me they have a compressor system in this field in China that he ran, and he said there's a board, and I can imagine like a control room.
Sure.
And he said there's lights on the board. I said okay, and then the lights come on the board because the compressor's not running. Then the man calls the engineer. The engineer figures out, and he calls to the maintenance, and they go out there and they call their team and they fix it.
Troubleshoot it, fix it.
So this is going on, and I'm telling you, like several hours worth of translation because he wants to understand how we do it. And it's several hours. He explains his system, and he says, because he's getting confused. He said, again, tell me how you do it. I said, when the compressor goes down, it calls the man.
Yeah.
And he goes there.
That's right.
None of that exists.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know if they go? Well, what do you mean?
Because the compressor comes back on.
Yeah, like why wouldn't he go?
Right.
Why wouldn't he go?
Right.
We call him and paid him to go and asked him to go.
Yeah.
He's supposed to go. It was just things like that.
Yeah, just man, but what an education in itself, right?
Yeah. I sat down with him talking about land.
Yeah.
You know how complex land is.
Oh.
And I'm not going to try to ruin this podcast with that. But I'm talking about a couple of days of explaining the complexity of land with multiple translators, the gentleman said, I understand. And through a translator, he says, in China, we have one landowner.
That's right.
That's right. And so they're like, why does it take 5 months to get a well ready? Who are these people? Why can't you just go drill?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And yeah. I think I can't think of a better probably visual than that.
Yeah.
As far as differences go. Hey, China owns China.
Right.
This guy doesn't own any piece of China.
Right.
China owns China.
Now, I'll tell you another funny story. You know what happens when they drill in an urban area in China? They stop drilling at night because people got to sleep. You're not going to have the national government drilling a hole in the middle of a neighborhood. We will drill right through the middle of the night, put up sound walls
Of
the best
course,
we can,
yeah,
and not
yeah.
stop for a second.
Not
They're
even
like,
a second.
hey, it's nighttime.
Yeah.
People sleep.
People gotta sleep.
We'd only work till a certain hour. Very different operation. Put it on circulation. Like, who does that?
Yeah, yeah, man. But they do.
Right.
That's who. So at MD, at this point I'd been introduced to you by John Richards. Did you guys ever work together?
No, I met John there, downtown Fort Worth,
Okay.
and I kept track of him for a while when he went to Range, and kind of lost track here the last couple
I think he's
years.
still at Range. He's over in like Ruston, Louisiana, which is I think where he's from anyway. So
Well,
he
our
kinda likes
service company, I mean, the point is I have a pretty significant presence in his operation.
Yeah,
I should call him.
yeah,
Don't watch this, John.
yeah. John's a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember he came to me when the company I was working for we were starting to have some problems.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, there's this guy Eric Waller. He's looking for somebody. Are you interested?" And I'm very much like ride for the brand. I was like, "John, I'm here to work. I work for you.
Yeah.
I don't care what's happening anywhere else. If you tell me I'm okay here. I don't want to leave." And so I hadn't met you yet, but
He's like, you should probably meet somebody.
he's like, you should probably talk to Eric. But I didn't. And then fast forward, you end up you and I getting connected after I was laid off from energy and exploration, and I remember I came and interviewed for a job with MD in the supply chain, and something that made me. I already had a lot of respect for you. I kind of knew some of your story, obviously not as much as I know now from sitting here with you tonight. But so I had a lot of respect for you being a guy that started in the dirt in West Texas, and now you're CEO of a company. That's fascinating to me. But I went and I interviewed with your team. It felt like it went really well. And you weren't in there, which I appreciated because you and I had a personal relationship,
Yeah.
and you didn't want to.
Yeah.
You didn't want to bias the room, and that meant a lot. I was like, "Well, this is serious."
Well, they kill you in the end if I shove somebody in. The team needs them. I know how the field works.
That's
so.
correct. But you called me after, I think maybe later that evening, and you said, "Hey, things went really well. Do not take that job if they offer it to you." And I said, "Okay." And you said, "You're better. Your skill set is better suited doing something else. You can do that job, no problem.
Yeah.
You're better doing something else, and I don't have that for you right now.
Yeah, why do this? You're going to be disappointed.
You'd be bored to death."
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to me. And it meant a lot to me later. That day I was kind of like, what the F, man? I mean, obviously I was like listening to you, but at the same time I thought, man, that sucks. Because I always...
I wasn't going to pay that good on that job either.
Well, that's fair. But I always thought it would be interesting to work, with you and learn a bunch from you. But I've been able to do that just as your friend, so it worked out. But I really a lot of respect. So you leave MD. While you're there, though, you start a service company.
Well, I start more than one company there.
Yeah.
The first company I start there is Inkworks. Over there, the tattoo company. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, and let me tell you the funniest thing. So you start Inkworks, and I'm gonna go piss real quick because this is a funny story and I want to tell it.
I need a break too.
Yeah. All right. So we're back. We had to take a bio break because old bladders and fluids. So we were going to talk about you started a Inkworks, which is a tattoo parlor, which is interesting in and of itself. And it's funny how I figured that out. My wife had started we'd bought an existing permanent makeup business, and they're licensed not under cosmetology but under tattoo, because basically what they're doing is tattooing eyebrows on people. And I remember looking through the other tattoo licenses in the area, and I came across Chris Waller, and I was like, "Well, I know an Eric Waller." And Don goes, "Oh, this person's named Waller also." And I was like, it would be just like him to own a tattoo parlor. And I didn't know your name was Chris. So I texted you and I said, "Hey, is your first name Chris?" And you texted back, "Yeah, why?" And I was like, "Do you own a tattoo parlor?" And you're like, "Yeah." And I just said back, "Of course you do." And it was the funniest thing. But so you start that, and you said you started that and a couple of other businesses.
Well, a total as the CEO, I had a board that allowed me to do that, just to be clear.
Yeah.
That's something that's normally not allowed, but the
Yeah.
Chinese were completely fine with side projects. It's culturally, it's kind of what they do.
Yeah.
Right? So they allowed me to start and run 4 businesses, all 4 of which are operating successfully today. I'm pretty excited about that.
Now, when you say start and run, like you weren't in the day-to-day operations.
Well, no, but yes. I mean,
Yeah.
so the model. So it's hard to explain. What happened to me early on was, you tell this story about borrowing this money, and I didn't know how to do any of that. The CEO at the time did. I'm on the team, but I learned fast, right?
Sure.
And you go through this process and you learn this stuff. But one thing I learned really quick was they built the incentives in a way that I could chase the money and give them what they wanted and what I wanted. So this.
And when you say what they wanted, you mean the Chinese?
No, even before that.
I got you.
The first equity deal, these are junk bond guys, okay?
Yep,
These are,
yep.
hey, I love them, okay, but these are the nastiest of the nasties. This is when you see these nasty Wall Street movies. And
Yeah,
they're
Wolf of Wall Street guys.
These are just nasty guys, man. And
Shrewd.
They run numbers all day. And the reason they're shrewd is if they aren't, the next guy will.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I went to work that Wall Street track, I get off the plane at 7. We work till, 11:30 or 12. We get a couple rounds. They're currying over documents. I think at 5 a.m. I go to sleep.
Yeah.
I get back up at 6:30 to be at breakfast at 7 a.m. The analysts are there. They've changed clothes and they have not been to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I realized right then, this things I was told in the oil field is wrong. They said it's all these fat cats making all this money.
No.
And no, they're working hard.
It's these dudes that are taking years off their lives doing this.
Yeah, and in order to be able to do it, that's why these guys get up at 4 in the morning and exercise all that, because just the drain of it.
Yep.
And the next guy, there's a new class at Wharton every year.
Yep.
You know,
and they're hungry.
And they pay good.
Yep.
And it's worth it. That's why they're so nasty. But I got to learn to do all that stuff. It was crazy. But I learned that if you align the incentives correctly, you could trust the organization to run it. That's what they do. At the heart of their matter is there's more money than there are teams to deliver it. That's a fact. There's more money that wants good operational teams to do stuff in every single sector of the business. The problem isn't getting money. It's getting a team together that knows how to talk to those people, because they have the money, so naturally they're smarter than everybody.
Right.
You have to constantly try to explain an operation to a person who only views it through a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I got to see that firsthand when I worked at Energy and Exploration, because we went through that acquisition.
Yeah.
And it was a $1.3 billion acquisition.
Matter of fact, Hunt closed that a week before I closed the 525.
Yeah.
We were right there on the street at the same time.
And I remember sitting with John Richards, who was an amazing person to sit, and he would sit and talk with me and help me understand that side of the road show. And he's like, when you're going to talk to these guys, they are less interested in the operation. Obviously, they're interested in the operation, but they want to know who the team is.
Yeah.
And they understand team, even outside of the operation. Now, they need to understand the operation too, but there's a lot of who's running it. And that was a real lesson for me to realize, man, you can do a lot with the right team.
Yeah, and track record too. The hardest gig is to get your first one.
Sure.
I guess the second one's harder if you don't do well. But it's. I mean, to be honest with you, it was easier for me to borrow $525 million on behalf of that company than it was for me to buy my first house.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. Felt like they asked less questions.
There's probably a lot more to guarantee that $500 million.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was known to pay late.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll get you. I'll put some on it.
Yeah. So that was that. So we did that. First, we started off with Inkworks, and so it was this model of, hey, it was. There was a guy. His name's Paul Gordon. He worked for they were a large anchor investor in our original deal, like $90 million of the $250.
Yeah.
So these are, I don't know the real numbers. I'm making up numbers.
He invested a large.
Paul, if that's a CA issue, please strike it. But my point is,
he invested a large amount.
He invested a lot of it, and we did well for them. Okay, and Paul said, "Listen, Eric, I'm going to give you some advice," because he was a phenomenal wealth of advice to me.
Sure.
In the middle of all these sharks, and he'll do his job unapologetically, but he just realized it's the game, right?
Yeah.
But he said, there's more money than our teams. Don't ever forget that you guys are a valuable team. Don't forget it. There's more money than there are you.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember that. And I just remembered that, right? And but so I tried to follow that model, and so I am a guy with a story of a high school dropout that goes to CEO. So naturally, I want to help people that don't have that same opportunity, right? Now I'm getting a little money, put a little money in the bank, and we've sold the company, and we've cashed out equity, and this little tattoo shop's operating. I never see the owner. Something's going on, but they never disparage him. I said, where's the owner? I get divorced. But they don't disparage him. Finally, when I said, I don't care what you say. That guy's on drugs, man. Something ain't right.
Yeah, yeah.
They still didn't disparage him.
There's more to this story than he's just got all these excuses, yeah.
But I said something that I've said a few times since then. And I said, how'd you like to own your own business? You see the guys light up, and I realized the only thing stopping what I do is after talking to these guys, I realize they pay about half up to the house, and he pays the rent, provides a building. He's not even showing up doing any work,
right?
Which most owners do, right at the time. Well, I realized that I could cover the half,
yeah,
and I'll treat them right,
yeah.
Well, but they still ride for the brand, and then I get a call and they says, "Hey, man, he didn't pay the rent." That's when I said, "Okay, let's go." And then we we built it up, and in 2.5 years, they, paid me all my money that I loaned them. And then they, I didn't loan it, but they paid me my original investment back, and then they purchased the operation.
Yeah.
They paid me off years ago. It's still operating, but they did a great job. I went in there, we remodeled the store, we did the branding, we did the logos, we did the marketing, and then these guys took it and ran with it.
Right.
They were guys that were operation-based guys that had no money or opportunity. And by the way, no one teaches operations guys anything about business. They don't want us to know. They don't.
Well, because they're scared you take it.
We will take it.
Yeah.
You take an operations guy like me and teach him some business, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You can teach an accountant how to roughneck, maybe, but you can teach a smart roughneck accounting.
Yeah. That's true.
So that's the difference. That's
true.
where I got dangerous, was my field experience. Well, we took the tattoo, that worked so well. What do we do next? We started Caddo Oilfield Construction.
Yeah. With Chad.
Yeah. And
I'm gonna have Chad on this show too. He'd be an awesome story.
Listen, man. Chad's kicked ass. That company operates without me influencing it much. I'm really proud to be able to serve on the board or help advise him in that manner. But Chad took that company and just blew it up.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Chad's a great guy. He's the right guy to do that. I mean, he's fantastic.
It's funny. Like I really try to be careful because on the one hand, I'm sensitive to the audiences that I speak to, and I'm sensitive to vulgarity and profanity, but some things you can just only tell that way.
Yeah.
And me and Chad had a motto when we started to try to understand what kind of culture we were going to build, how we're going to treat our customers. And I'm busy. I understand I'm running this company, okay?
Right.
I can meet with Chad at night, in the morning.
Right.
And I mean, I'm working 19, 20 hours a day.
Sure.
More sometimes. And the rig will tell you, Eric don't sleep. He will show up here any time, day or night. Because without the rigs running, I can't do all this other. So I have to make sure this is right.
That's right.
I do it 24/7. And the people I work with will tell you I'm not lazy.
Yeah.
And, we just put Chad in charge of that, and he blew it up, and then that company's a multi-million dollar every year. We operate now.
What was your motto?
Our motto is nobody gets fucked.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. That's what our private motto is. And so when the question was, is this bad for a customer? Is it bad for an employee? Is it bad for me? Like, no one's getting screwed here.
Yeah.
Like, that's the deal. When you want to know the answer, is it fair?
Yeah.
Did he accept it? Does he understand it ahead of time? He did go, but we're not, because so many companies operate like that.
Yeah.
And I know they don't actually start off to do it, but I just felt like it was really careful that we just, when new employees came and said, what are y'all about?
Yep.
Yeah,
you were intentional with it.
Very intentional.
Yeah.
And I learned that skill from a previous leader about certain things to be intentional about,
Right.
When I took over when I took over the operations, we built Woodbine, right? I go out there, I take over a rig, first day. At some point, we call a neighbor's rig out. I get a second rig. Neighbor shows up. They all show up. At this point, I'm vice president of ops, And the guy meets me on location. We're rigging up. He says, hey, y'all got a safety manual? I said, I don't know, somewhere, He said, what are your expectations? I said, I expect you to do what neighbors said they do in their book. I don't know why you're worried about my book.
Right.
I'm pretty sure your book's better than mine.
That's right.
And shocked him. But I said, I'm going to make it easy for you. There's a few things if you do here, you're fired. And I had learned this from a previous guy. And I said, number one is I've seen a couple guys with the fall protection as a problem. If you're above 6 foot without fall protection, you're going home, man. No questions asked. I don't have time for it. You know, if you're doing permitted work like hot work, confined space, without that, you're going home. Like, there's no second chance.
Sure.
And finally, I met a big group and I said, and I just think it's stupid. And I have to come out and tell you to wear glasses.
Yeah,
I've been doing this since 90, like 89.
Yeah, wear your glasses.
Come on, man. So that intentional thing was, I don't want to be confusing with the culture. Here's the culture. If I catch you hiring my head not tied off, you're fired.
Yeah, because if you're going to go that high, you'll go higher and you'll die.
Yeah, and go die somewhere else. Correct. I ain't my business if you die. You still get to do it here.
That's right.
And that worked for a while in a small company, right? I learned that in a big company, believe it or not. But we had a group called the Cardinal Rules, that Jerry Austin and his team came up with. I joined the team, and the Cardinal Rules existed, but they were very much like the things I was talking about.
Yeah,
I didn't go as far as the 8 or 9. I just had a couple.
Yeah, I mean, and they're all relatively easy to accomplish.
Yeah,
you just do them.
And you know what's funny? You tell this whole story, and people don't realize when we started, I was driving we didn't have an office in the field. I was driving in my truck. My personal vehicle. We didn't have company vehicles. We didn't have company credit cards. I was driving to the cafe in North Sults, Texas, because they gave me their Wi-Fi password at lunch and parking right in front of the building so I could upload reports. I mean, that's where we were. 10 years later, it's this famous story, all this stuff, and, it's cool. But it wasn't like that in the beginning. Right. It was boots on the ground, craziness. But I'll go back to the companies we started. So Caddo is by far, no, it's not my favorite. I got to say that I'm proud of it, but I just think of the others, and I'm like, no. But Caddo rocked it. We work in multiple states, massive major corporations. We build, companies like Exxon. We build, more locations for them in West Texas probably than anybody today.
That's amazing. And I remember when that company started, I'd met Chad. You'd had a get-together at your house, and I met Chad, and he and I hit it off. Yeah, immediately. Yeah. I mean, he's a hard person not to get along with.
Well, he's a pretty straight shooter.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. And then he and I kept in touch. And I remember when the company started, he and I were having conversations, and it just wasn't the right time for me to get involved with it. And it seems like it never is the right time. I've got
come on, man. You know how I feel.
I know. I've always got a great. Thing going, and Wildcat's an amazing place. And they allow me a lot of.
Sorry, Wildcat. I'm not recruiting him. I apologize.
Well, and he can't. So, but anyhow, it's just been a lot of fun to have known Chad and obviously you at the start of that, and then just to watch it kind of grow. And I remember when you guys announced your first office building that you put up in there in Midland, and just seeing that, it's just such a monumental thing, and it's been so fun to watch, and I'm so happy for you guys. They couldn't happen to two better dudes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. And a lot of people didn't know I was involved with that because as a CEO, I just chose to not distract everyone with it. So it was very quiet. Like some people are like, well, I didn't know that was yours. Every once in a while I'll reach out I'll try to reach my network to recruit someone, or I'll post something.
Right.
And people are like, what do you got to do with that company? I was like, well, it's kind of there on day one.
I own it.
Yeah. And I own some of it. Let me be clear.
Right.
Chad's earned his place at the top of that 100%.
That dude's a worker, man. He will grind himself into a powder. Yeah. So he's awesome.
I don't know if he'll grind or not. He'll work, but something else might get grinded up.
Yeah, he's something else, man. And so you start Caddo, then what?
Then, in 2020 was a crazy year.
What was going on in 2020?
That was the COVID thing.
COVID.
Yeah, whole... So keep in mind, I'm the CEO for a Chinese company. So I actually get a heads up, okay?
Yeah.
The company I work for is in the province that neighbors the Wuhan province. They're in Zhejiang province, the number 2 impacted province in China. Wuhan was the worst, but they literally were on lockdown a month before we kind of even heard about it over here. It was
so they gave you a heads up.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, let me be honest. I don't really trust the government in any nation, and so I don't know what's going on. Maybe
Sure.
they're locking everybody down, killing everybody. I don't know, but
Who knows?
I mean, I'm exaggerating, but the point is that the CEO, my chairman, is calling me saying, "Do you know where to buy N95 masks? We need masks for our people in the office. There's a disease." Okay,
Yep.
so I go buy some N95. This is going on before we go on vacation. I come back in February after spring break, and I come back, and I'm in Salt Lake with my children, and there's not a lot of, or Park City, there's not a lot of people there, and I'm really starting to freak out. Like, it's spring break in Park City.
Yeah, that place is packed out.
Something's wrong,
Yeah.
and I go home and I call my partners, the team, and I said, "Look, this thing's happening.
There's
Let's
something
shut her
going
down."
on here. Yeah.
And that office never reopened fully. They sold that company a couple months ago, but it never reopened fully.
So downtown MD never opened back up fully?
No, never. And
Wow.
we had the entire floor, right?
Yeah, it was an office, an awesome office.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I thought that was the end for the company. Not because of the financial situation. It was strong. I did not believe we could remotely operate an oil company. And the truth is we didn't have a lot going on. It was, but
Right.
the truth is we weren't drilling. We had financial problems in the sector. Everybody did. And we were locked down for COVID.
Yeah.
My energy.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I have nothing to do. My wife, my current wife, she's not my wife at the time, but she says, "Let's start a pumpkin patch." So, we opened the agribusiness, the Jack Rural Pumpkin Patch, which is just taking off. It is. There's a portion of my life that is my favorite business.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite business, but there's components of it that I get more joy out of than any other business I have.
Well, because you're getting to work with your hands again in
Not
a lot of
just
ways.
that. Let me tell you something. I get to work with teenage kids who is their first or second job.
Oh.
Now, I went through the deal of a CEO, and let me tell you something about being a CEO. Look, I wouldn't not do it again. I mean, you can't not do it again, but it's pretty thankless.
Yeah.
And the truth is, there's no way to do the job without infuriating people. There's
Sure.
no way to do the job without. There's a way to do the job with ethically. When you make ethical mistakes, you disappoint people. I mean, there's just so many things that you can't get it perfect. Okay?
There's so many traps.
No, the hardest thing for me was it took me a while to. Now, luckily, I didn't have to acclimate too long because I took over as CEO, and 3 days into me being a CEO, this chain of events occurred that was intense. We could have lost the company.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with anything I did, but I spent months and months fixing this thing that almost took us down. And I didn't get time to celebrate, but I remember having the job the first day and being completely lost
Yeah.
for days, a couple. And people are like, "You'll get used to it, it's shell-shocked." And it wasn't that. It was up until that moment, I had a competitor in the building. I had a competitor on location. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do your job.
Yep.
Be a jiu-jitsu guy with no competitor. How do you wrestle?
Well, you're just a guy flopping around on the mat.
Right. That's how I felt. But the truth was, what happened is, I'm sure other leaders will explain it different. It went from being about me and my career and my team to it no longer had anything to do with me.
Right.
Now, it's hard to argue that looking from the outside because it looks like everything's to do with you when you're the CEO. When
Sure.
you look at Elon Musk, okay, everything's about Elon.
Yep.
But I guarantee you, Elon wakes up most days and nothing's about Elon.
Probably. Yeah.
It really is that
Yeah.
way. And I went from this competitor to no competition. I mean, there's other CEOs, but I mean, honestly, I was surprised I was in the seat. I sure wasn't going to go pick a fight with another CEO.
Sure.
Right? You first thing, then you sat down, then a couple weeks later, you start sitting down with the imposter syndrome. I don't belong here.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it. I'm going to do the best job I can do. And some days that was awesome. And some days it sucked.
Yeah.
But all in all, we did that. Well, so we start the Jacksboro Pumpkin Patch, and it just blows up, right?
Yep.
It's still going. I was there today. We have full-time employee today. It went from a little ranch with a little bit of pumpkins and people coming to thousands of children coming. It's our third year opening. And
Yeah.
It's just blown up. We built a wedding venue out there.
That's where you got married, right?
I got married there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
That makes it even more special. And I remember
on my land on a deck that I built with my hands.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
That's cool. I don't care who you are. And
I wasn't gonna let another man build that.
I don't. You couldn't.
No.
But I remember you invited us to your 50th birthday, so I got to go to the pumpkin patch, and it's just a cool place.
It's cool.
It's just a cool place. It really, really is. So that's going strong.
Yeah.
And that's here in Jacksboro, Texas.
Yeah, yeah. And then and we're going to turn that on its head over the next few years. We're moving from we're going to always be the pumpkin patch, right? But we're going to build a little eco park. We're going to do some really cool regenerative farming techniques and some things, like, hey, I love oil and gas and I have nothing against chemicals, but I also really love living clean and without them.
Sure.
So I don't have a conflict. I get to enjoy both worlds, right? And so we're building this really cool outdoor hydroponic vegetable gardening to teach people how to, for food insecurity, how to grow food in PVC at your home, how to do lots of cool stuff. Like,
and when people talk about, just what you said, a love for both oil and gas and the environment, I don't think people understand the level of protection that oil and gas goes into the environment. And they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this right now.
Both of those things are important things.
Unbelievably important. The reason people don't understand that is because the people who are fighting to destroy the industry are liars.
100% they're liars.
Very openly. The oil and gas industry is crammed full of scientists.
Oh.
I mean, it's science heavy. But anyways,
That's a whole different podcast.
Look, I'm going to tell you something. My granddad flew into Bali Poppin when it was a jungle, and my grandmother sawed up frozen blocks of spinach with the camp women to eat. And when they rolled out a temporary mat, Bali Poppin's a resort today because people like my granddad flew in the middle of the jungle, made their lives better.
Yeah, the oil and gas industry has done more to lift the world.
We would be single row farmers if it wasn't for petroleum.
Agreed.
Yeah,
100%.
Now, do we need to go green? Yes. Do we need to destroy our economy doing it? No. Is the current green push designed to get other people really wealthy? Absolutely. Stop doing it.
Yeah.
But guess what? We compost, we recycle, we reduce, we reuse. I do my part, and I go out there and when I run an operation, I create oil and gas out of the ground, and that's what happens, right?
Yeah, and it makes people's lives better.
It does.
It makes people's lives better. Yeah. And so I think that's awesome that you're going to, and you and I talked a little bit about that just a few weeks ago, how you were saying, given some of the things that you're having trouble getting, in terms of, fertilizer this or whatever, you're going back to some natural methods like, hey, we're going to just turn some goats loose and let them do their thing.
And chickens and ducks, and that's what we're doing, yeah.
I think that's awesome. And so then you guys are sitting around a dinner table, just chatting, you and your wife now, and I don't think you guys were married at the time, and you decide, you know what, let's start a roofing business. Yeah. And so you start Total Roofing.
Yeah, what a great, look, I got to be, I'm having so much fun with this company, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I get excited because, all right, let's be clear. My career consists of oil and gas executive or worker.
Yeah.
Debt collection executive.
Correct.
And now I'm a roofer. I'm totally comfortable with people thinking I'm a scum bucket.
Yeah.
But the truth is,
the only other thing left for you to do is be the Texas Hammer.
No, I'm gonna sell extended warranties when I get old.
Oh,
I'm gonna call you for. Well, but the truth is, it's.
What do you mean when you get old?
Yeah. It's when I can't get outside.
I got you. Yeah. Okay.
Look, it's a noble business with some bad actors.
Yeah, sure.
And I get to go to people's houses, and so we started. So I got good at creating these little things that no one gets. No one gets screwed at Caddo. What was it here? So when we got Total, we said, what are we about? What are we?
Yeah.
And any of you guys going to college right now, if you're watching this and you're reading your leadership books, and they're talking about your mission statement, your values, and all that, it is important.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand this constant push to create them before you even put your team together and see what the color of the Jell-O is, man.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of go and figure it out.
Yeah.
And it took us a while. And now, we started off saying we're advocates for our homeowners. We got to fight for these people because
Sure.
I got in this business thinking that roofers were shady and that I needed to be careful not run a shady business. And what I learned was insurance companies are shady. It's the worst criminal racket I've ever witnessed. It's shocking. I may make millions figuring out how to beat them. They steal from their clients every single day. It's shocking.
Yeah.
It's shocking. I cannot tell you how many people think I'm stealing from them and their insurance company is.
Yeah.
It's shocking. But so then we start trying to figure out, well, I can't educate everyone. They're just never going to believe it.
Yeah.
So what is it? Where are we at now? Every homeowner that we work for is in a better condition when we leave. So that leaves the possibilities endless, right? Like we didn't offer financing for almost 2 years. And people said, Eric, you got to provide financing. You're losing deals. I know I am. But I can't find a financing deal that my client's in better condition when they met me. If I saddle them with a 19% debt that they can barely afford, what have I done?
Right. And you're not only making your clients' lives better. You remember last year I had my roof replaced.
Yeah.
And I live in Houston.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was going to give the work to you if you could get a crew there. And you said, I'll get a crew there, but here's how you navigate that situation. So it's just
it's shockingly complicated, isn't it?
It is, and it's not. I mean, if you have someone on the inside that can tell you the words to say, it makes it a little easier for sure.
Right.
But I can tell you, man, it's just what you're describing is having a heart for people first, and knowing that that'll produce success because of the way you're treating others. And I think that's awesome.
I appreciate that. I don't necessarily feel that way.
Well, that's what you're saying, though.
Well, I mean, I care about people. Don't get me wrong, but I really care about the results. The results are inherent in the heart for people, I think, and I believe that personally. Yeah, I mean, I think they paid for a good job. They should get it, but I'm gonna get a good job whether I make money or. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's not about the money. Now I want to make money, but I want to every single person to say you should hire those guys.
Sure.
Now it's not always going to work that way, but most people say you should hire those guys when they work for us. We just hadn't been around long enough. So that's 4 businesses in 6 years that we started. I don't own the tattoo shop anymore.
Yeah. You transition that ownership to them, you said.
Yeah, and like I said, they're still operating successfully today. They'll tell you, great guys. I recommend them, day and night. If you're in tattoos, a lot of us aren't. A lot of y'all aren't. A lot of us are. How about that?
Well, there you go.
But that's kind of it. And I'm sitting around here every day, and I'm working, pretty hard. But I don't have to ask anyone to go to the daycare and see my 5-year-old. I don't have to ask anyone. Now, I may have to lose money.
Yeah.
I may have to disappoint a customer. I may have to do something, but I don't have to ask.
Right.
And that's a pretty good feeling.
Without a doubt it is.
And it's also scary as hell.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody to blame.
There's nobody to blame at all. And again, going back to that whole entrepreneurial lifestyle, I've had other people describe it as just a unique sickness. And it's one of these, I think by noon we're going to be billionaires and by 2 we're going to be destitute. And then by the end of the day, you're like, it's going to be okay. We're okay. Yeah. On to the next day. So,
well, I think it's kind of like exercise. I mean, in the end, people that exercise religiously exercise not for the end result. Yeah. I know they say they do.
Yeah.
Most of them, it feels good while they're doing it. Yeah. Once they do it.
Yeah.
That's how hard entrepreneurship is. It's hard to get moving.
Yeah.
But once it's moving,
once you're going,
it feels pretty good.
Well, Waller, you're one of my favorite people on the planet.
I appreciate that.
So thank you so much for having me and doing this and man, I can't wait for the rest of the people to hear your story.
Awesome, man.
All right, buddy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Waller.